Hi, welcome to my channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. If you haven't watched my previous videos, I would just like to repeat my apologies. Here in South Africa, we went to level 6 of load shedding or blackouts, and that means about between an average 8-10 hours a day we have no electricity. And actually, it makes it very difficult to make videos. The level has gone a little bit downwards, so I'm taking a chance today to make as many videos as I can in order to distribute again over the coming week, and hopefully the situation will improve. Today is my second video, Sunday. It's nice and cold and rainy, and it seems to me the winter is on us. And well, I was looking forward to it. So that's why I have this jacket on today. So today my topic is the events that are currently playing in the Middle East. And it seems to me that hopefully peace is coming to the Middle East finally. So if you are interested, please continue watching. Welcome back to the channel. Well, you've probably heard about the recent deal that was brokered by China between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And apparently it caught the Americans off guard. Well, it actually caught most of us off guard because we didn't know that there were such talks happening in China itself. But I'm sure the American intelligence should have known it. And if they didn't know about it, then, well, you can make your own conclusions. But the thing didn't start now. You could see there was a slow change overall happening in the Middle East since last year. And the biggest linchpin, or where everything goes, is MBS from Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince. And he's a young guy, and I believe he wants to make changes. Now, the Americans and Joe Biden tried to accuse him of the killing of Saudi Arabian journalist. I don't know the name. Yeah. Sorry, missed that name again. And in any case, when he went into the embassy in Turkey, and he never reappeared, and apparently he was hacked up into smaller pieces and then conveyed out. And while the Americans accused Saudi Arabia of doing it, but MBS decided no, and he probably sacrificed his own men, or if he was involved. And if he wasn't involved, then, well, he punished those people that were responsible for this killing. But that's what is, I believe, the start of the souring of relationships. And then the Russian SMO started in Ukraine. And the way that America and the Western nations reacted with sanctions, and the type of sanctions that were happening, I think MBS basically saw what the West was doing, and he probably lost any trust in the West, and especially in America, who is his biggest bagger. And by the way, you know, when Donald Trump was in control, was the president, he went to Saudi Arabia and he bragged about this huge military package that he negotiated, like 500 billion. I wonder what has happened of that, because I don't think it has ever been materialized. But that's, again, deviating from the point. So we had the inflation, we had all the other stuff, and gas cut off and stuff like that. And then Joe Biden tried to phone MBS and talk about that, but he was ignored. And that is a seriously implication at that stage. And the first thing that MBS did is he phoned Putin and talked to Putin. And that was a real slap in the face of Joe Biden. And then later on, we had OPEC and so on decided to cut production, I think 2 million barrels or something like that, in order to stabilize the oil market. And Joe Biden wasn't happy with that because the fuel prices in America were going up. And that is very bad for his political career. And, well, I don't know what political career Joe Biden has in any case, because he's a senile president with dementia, and that's a very, very dangerous combination. But he deviated again. In any case, so counter to the interest of America, they cut production in OPEC. And now they cut production in any case again. And Russia also has announced that they will cut voluntarily more oil production in order to stabilize the market. So everything that MBS and Saudi Arabia has done is counterproductive or counter to the wishes of the US. So it seems to me that slowly MBS is cutting himself off or spreading his wings or distributing his risk, if you want to call it like that. And then we had, slowly but surely, we heard that Turkey and Syria were talking. And then slowly and surely we heard that Saudi Arabia and Turkey and Syria was talking. And then we suddenly heard there was this deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, brokered by China. And China finally said that these guys can, well, they agreed to restore the diplomatic relationships. But just for the sake, I don't understand why it could be severe, but it started off by Saudi Arabia executing a Shiite a cleric, a very prominent Shiite cleric for some other reasons. And because of that, Iran protested, and because of that, that's where they cut off any diplomatic ties. Now again, I live in a Christian country. I don't fully understand the Muslims and how it works. But it seems to me it was very serious implications for Iran itself, from their cultural and their religious perspective, and vice versa on the Saudi Arabia. And according to that, this is basically why the conflict or the animosity started between these countries. And that's, well, no, where it escalated. But mostly, Saudi Arabia and Iran are basically two large countries, dominant countries in the Middle East. And, well, that was always a type of friction that could have handled between them. So, yes, I can understand why it happened in that respect. But I'm also think that the Americans had a big hand in that, in order to stir up the emotions and to stir up the conflict and stir up the animosity between Iraq and Saudi Arabia. And now with the brokered deal, that is gone. Yes, there's still a little bit of mistrust and so on. You cannot build up trust in such a short time. It's going to take time, but the seed has been planted, and that's it. Then also, Saudi Arabia and Emirates have now started peace talks. How do you call it? Wapens te stilstand. They stopped fighting. No, not a peace agreement. How do you say it in English? They stopped shooting at each other. That's a description. I don't know. But in any case, so they had a lull in the fighting now, and now the MBS has declared they want to stop the war in Yemen. And again, why Saudi Arabia ever supported that war, I don't know. It's like they support the existing government, and which the Yemen didn't want, which was corrupt in any case, and that's how the whole war started. And it seems to me that more than 350,000 people have died in the conflict over the last couple of years. So it's one of those stupid wars that never should have happened. But anyways, peace is on its way. Saudi Arabia said they want to stop the war, they want to make peace with Yemen, and hopefully Yemen can come back to the original state. And hopefully the poorest country in the Middle East can get on with their life, and hopefully whatever. And then on the other hand we have Syria. Now, Saudi Arabia and the United Emirates and all those smaller countries and so on were always were supporting the rebels in Syria, and they were funding them and giving them weapons and so on. But it seems to me that's also going to stop now. Saudi Arabia now wants to make peace with Syria, stop funding the rebels, and bring back Assad or Syria into the Arabian, what do they call it? Yeah, the Arabian world. They want to make it. Arab League. So they want to. So Syria was kicked out of the Arab League when unrest or the war in Syria started, and now they want him back, and it's a slow process to bring it back. So again, from the Saudi Arabians' perspective, they want peace with Syria, and they want to assist Syria in rebuilding the country after the big earthquakes that they experienced. And hopefully that will bring peace to Syria as well and slowly normalize stuff. There is also talk between Syria and Turkey, and it's probably being supported by the Russians. But that's a little bit more of a complex situation because the YPG, which is one of the splinter rebel groups, which is supported by the Americans, Turkey sees them as their enemy. And that's why Turkey has invaded the northern parts of Syria and bombed some of those cities. And I know that there was talk of peace, and there were talks of the Syrian army going to the north, to the border, in order to keep the YPG in control, together with the Russians as well. But how that attitude of, or that conflict between Turkey and the Kurds gonna be handled, that I believe is fairly difficult. But we will see. But there is talk going on. It's not that it's still going on as before. So there is movement on that front. So hopefully that matter can also be resolved, and Syria can finally gain peace again, except for one problem, and that's the Americans. The Americans are still based in certain parts of, call it eastern, southeastern part of Syria, and they're still stealing the oil of Syria. Make no mistake, it's stealing, theft. But also the Russians have now made multiple flights, ignoring some of the deconflicting or back channels. So they are becoming much more threatening towards the USA bases and flying as they fly. So they are restricting the freedoms of the American forces in that region. And then there were also several attacks on the bases of the Americans. Yes, the Americans did retaliate, but soon afterwards they attacked the base again. So it seems to me that the Syrian army is slowly, I don't know who, which factions, is going to pressure the Americans to leave basically Syria. And because there's also the problem between the Americans support the Kurds, but the Turkish see the Kurds as a threat, and Turkey and America are supposed to be NATO allies. That complicates the whole matter, and that's still be open for speculations and discussions, whatever we can have. Then there's still the case about Libya. I'm not totally sure what will happen there. Libya is a chaos, but I believe the Russians are also involved there in order to negotiate certain peace agreements between the various factions. But again, it's not an easy task. It takes time. It is dangerous. And, well, a solution is still to be sought for that. But what's the most important thing is the attitude of the two big players. And that is Saudi Arabia and Iran. And hopefully they can apply their pressure and influence on the other smaller states, weaker states in the Middle East, and they will try to convince and force peace, and therefore we can do some economic development there, and China will get involved, and maybe in 5 years or sooner the American bases are gone. But that's a hopeful thing. We will still look at that. In any case, so I have hope for what's happening there, except the story about Israel. Well, Israel and Palestinian, that I don't even want to talk about that, because that is totally, I'm totally against that. But the attacks of Israel on Syria, that also is going to be probably stopped, because I believe that if Russia wants peace in Syria, then they have to approach Israel. And if Israel starts to deliver any weapons to Ukraine, that will give the Russians a good excuse in order to act aggressive against Israel, and then try to defend the Syrian skies against any bombing attacks or missile attacks. Excuse me. So I'm quite happy with happening there, and I'm quite glad, because that region of the world has been abused for a very, very long time. That's my story then for today. Until next time then. Cheers.